What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Rose Studios. My name is HoodQuest,
And I'm NocturnalNoctis.
and today we're going to be doing Tapas time. And on today's story, we're going to be reading The Squealer, that was actually written by myself. And it's pretty much the description goes as such: no matter where you go, it will find you. A series of disturbing, gruesome, and unexplained happenings are taking place, and they all lead to one thing. And
Just one thing.
Just one thing only. And then today we're actually going to be reading Season 1, Episode 1, entitled Something's Not Right. So the first time, we're going to read it straight through. And then the second time, we're going to read it, review it, and there'll be a couple jokes in between the second time. So if you want to read the original story, a link to the story will be down in the description below. And let's begin.
All right. Episode 1. Something's not right. My life really sucks. It's been that way for the longest time. Over my 34 years of living, each and every last year has been nothing but complete agony. Now, when I say this, I'm not trying to sound like one of those people who self-diagnose themselves with depression and such. Honestly, I do suffer from depression. Most of my life, I've been alone.
Quite frankly, I believe that God hates me. To be blunt, I believe that God either hates me with all his heart, or he simply doesn't exist. I mean, if there was a God, why would he let me suffer so badly? I know that I may sound selfish, but honestly I believe it. It hurts.
Through my childhood, I had to deal with a lot. My father was never in my life. My mother was in and out of rehab due to her constant drug parties. Therefore, I had to live with my grandmother mostly. Unfortunately, she was on the brink of being put in a hospital as she suffered from occasions of extreme confusion. Sometimes, she wouldn't even know where she was or who she was. I would say it was a period of her taking care of me, but it's more like me taking care of her. A childhood like this resulted in me being incredibly antisocial and not having any friends. It never bothered me too much as a kid.
From my childhood to now, I have been on and off antidepressant pills. Sometimes, I just have to skip a few days, just to make sure I wouldn't get addicted to the stuff. The last thing I wanted was to give my mother the satisfaction of knowing I ended up just like her. As I mentioned, I always believed that God hated me. I realized that the day I lost my wife and my 2 children, there has not been a day that has gone by where I don't have vivid memories of that horrible day. The day I lost them will forever live on in my mind.
Back when I lived in the city, I had a fairly decent office job. My wife had informed me that she was going to take my son and daughter out for some back-to-school shopping. That whole day, I was never expecting to get the phone call I received. While out and about, an idiot truck driver was not paying attention to the road and ran right through a red light. He slammed directly into my family. It was not just the truck driver I hated, I also hated the police.
As my family was inside the crushed vehicle, clinging to life, it took the police and paramedics far too long to get there. By the time they'd made it, it was too late. It turns out that my daughter, Megan, was killed instantly. The other 2 died while waiting for the authorities. My family dying changed me. I guess the event of losing my entire family at once was too much for me to handle. Ever since, I don't smile. I don't laugh. I don't find genuine joy in things anymore. Now my world just feels dull, lifeless, and broken.
From that day, I vowed I would be better than those police who couldn't do their jobs on time. I couldn't stand living in that city afterwards. I moved to a small, rural town about 200 miles from where I once lived. A realtor who also lives in this town had an ad online for a fairly decent-looking house. I moved here about 5 years ago, and life has been fairly odd.
I took the job as a police detective in this town, and the amount of things that happen in this town are unreal. For a fairly small town, a lot goes down here. There are the occasional calls of domestic abuse or some drunk idiot that's passed out in the streets. This was all well and fine, but after the first year, things got strange. Things got stranger than they already were. The people in this town were already strange enough. I don't know what's going on, but something's not right.
It all started with a call we received late one night around 11 o'clock. A woman called and sounded frantic and shaken. She reported that she was hearing footsteps from outside her house. She also reported that slight sounds of squealing by her bedroom window. Detective Norris looked at me with a face that showed confusion and fear. We thought this was strange, but we went nonetheless.
When we made it, we approached the front door. Actually, we approached what used to be the front door. Spread across the yard, there were pieces of wood. That wood used to be the front door.
When we stepped inside, what we saw immediately made us vomit. It was the woman who called. At least I think it was. It was clearly a freshly made corpse. The woman was almost unrecognizable. Her body was covered in claw marks that sank deep into her flesh. Her body was twisted and bent in a way that no human should be able to do.
About 5 minutes later, the paramedics arrived. At closer examination, they discovered something even stranger. Some of the woman's body parts had been removed. The woman was missing her eyelids, 3 toenails from the left foot, calf muscles of both legs, and 13 of her teeth. One of the paramedics couldn't even stand to look at the once living body.
What kind of sick blank would do this? Said one of the paramedics.
I finally looked over at Norris. His face had gone from disgust to utter terror. He looked as though he just reached some epiphany. He dropped down to his knees and vomited again. I ran over to him to make sure he was all right. What happened next has given me nightmares for the past 3 weeks straight. Norris looked right up at me, said 2 words, pulled out his pistol, and shot himself in the head. The paramedics, other officers, and I all completely lost our composure.
Norris, my fellow officer and friend, has just killed himself right in front of me. We're now investigating the woman's death and other occurrences. I intend on learning more about the 2 words Norris said to me. Norris's final words will forever live in my mind. I don't know what to make of this whole situation, but I intend to find out. Lately, there have been more calls of people going missing and people being found completely brutalized. We need to find out what's going on, and we need to find out fast. I need to find out what Norris was talking about. Norris's final words, the Squealer.
I'm currently taking a short break from the station. I need to clear my head and do some investigating. Whatever this Squealer thing is, it has to be something huge. I'm going to find out what's going on. I'm going to find out. I'll report back when I have more information. And that's the first episode.
First episode of the Squealer.
Yeah, pretty tense. You know, considering, you know, I wrote this, and considering it's well ahead. Like, I believe we're at the end of season 2 currently, so we'll try to get there soon enough. But yeah, that's what started it all. So
if you don't mind, HoodQuest, you mind if I ask you a few questions for your inspiration for the Squealer?
Inspiration? Simple. Well, the Squealer is essentially a story about a creature that roams the earth that is very bizarre. Like, currently in the first and second season, it's all about trying to find out what the Squealer is, how it works, what's its motives, what it does the way it does, and that's still to remain unanswered, but we'll get to that in season 3, which will premiere in January.
And speaking of this season 3 that premieres in January, can you allude to how many episodes you have uploaded so far to show our viewers that you are serious about this series?
So far, oh jeez Louise, I'm not sure, like in total there are 40 episodes.
Because I'm looking right now, it says you have 40 episodes,
but that's like
uploaded right now.
Yeah, but that's like give or take a few that were like just like little snippets of like, or updates about anything that was going on, so it could be roughly like 30 something, 30 or so.
So about 35 episodes, you would say?
Yeah, something like that, about 30.
All right. And does the tone of the series get darker as it goes on, or is it pretty consistent? Is your plan to make it darker with each episode, or What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know much, but I can tell you this: that when we get to season 2, it's a whole different type of. I mean, season 1, yeah, dark. Season 2, darker. And season 3, what I already have planned coming soon, will be darker than both of those. The plan is
So
to
what
get
you
darker and darker each season, darker and darker.
Darker and darker each season. So what you're saying is, if you're someone who enjoys dark, gruesome novels, this is the novel for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I can say it's not perfect. I'm not an expert writer. Like I said, you've written stuff too. You and I, we work together a lot. We've written dark things together. You know,
Yes, we have, and hopefully, as time goes on, we'll get to share more of our works with the YouTube audience as time goes on.
Indeed. And now, it's time for that's the serious us. Now it's time for the unserious us, where we read it again, but this time, review it.
All right. So
you want?
All right, let's just dive into it again.
All right, you can start us off.
Comedic style, I suppose.
Yep, you can start us off. So be prepared for interruptions.
All right, so I just have to say, my life really sucks.
Story
Isn't
of my
that
life.
kind of cliche?
My life really sucks.
It's been that way for the longest time.
I mean, yeah, everyone's life sucks. You work at dead end jobs. You're doing whatnot, working. You're trying to pay bills, and you can't pay bills because you got to deal with the bull crap of life. It happens. It happens. My life really sucks. Story of my life. Story of my life. Story of everyone's life.
And now when that did, it says over my 34 years of living. So you telling me this guy's life has been suckish for 34 years. So basically, since he was born on this earth, his life sucked. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. He is pretty much the human version of Superman.
The human version of Superman. Okay, I hear you now. But then it says, now when I say this, I'm not trying to sound like one of those people who self-diagnose themselves with depression and such. So you telling me this guy who just said that his life sucked his entire life is not self-diagnosing himself? Are you serious? Is that exactly self-diagnosing?
He is. He literally is. It starts off, he's a mope. He's like, I don't wanna sound like one of those people, but I'm one of those people.
So he reminds me of just the complete hypocritical person. I'm already loving this beginning. Like, the first paragraph is hilarious to me. It is just perfect right now. And then he says, most of my life I've been alone. So his life's been horrible. He's been alone, but he's not self-diagnosing himself. So he's saying all this stuff, but he's not self-diagnosing himself. He's above that, right?
Yes, yes. Like, starting off, I guess he's like the high and mighty. He's just, his character changes as the series proceeds. He's right now, he's kind of a grump. In this first episode, he was kind of a grump, pretentious, I'd say prick, but he'll just change somewhat.
Okay.
Then it says
paragraph says,
quite.
Go ahead.
He said, quite frankly, I believe God hates me, and I'm like, oh my God. Okay, yeah, God hates you. Yeah, sure. And then that's the view. He says, I don't know if I believe it. I was like, I believe that God either hates me or he doesn't exist. Which, which one is it? Do you? Do you not? It's like I said, the guy, his head is kind of fuzzy. But then again, his whole family did get killed. I guess that would change your perception of things, I suppose.
I suppose it would. But you're telling me, what is Mason's background? What was he originally growing up? Did you ever allude to that anywhere in the novel about what his growing up was as far as God and believing in that? Did you ever allude to that, or did you leave that for the reader to decide?
That was mostly a thing that was, open. Like, pretty much his character or his views on religion were never really a factor. But considering what he's gonna soon be going through, his opinions do sort of vary on what exists and what doesn't. Like, when he learns what the Squealer is and when he starts having to deal with it, it's essentially, is this a creature of science or a creature of God or a creature of the devil?
So basically, the main character, Squealer, he's going through a journey where he has to find out these details, just trying to discover what this thing is and where did it come from. And then he has his own internal, what's the word I'm looking for, internal struggles to help him solve, right?
Yes. Well, essentially in season 1, no, season 3 will pertain to trying to find out what the Squealer is. This guy is just trying to survive, essentially. He pretty much all.
So
of this
he's a
is happening around him.
survivalist. He's a survivalist. Is that what you're telling me?
Not a very good one, but yes.
Not very good. Not a very good one. So then moving on to the next paragraph, he says, through my childhood, I had to deal with a lot. And then he says, my father was never in my life. My mother was in and out of rehab due to her constant drug parties.
Drug parties.
So we say that drug party. Okay.
What is a drug party? See, this is why I like looking back on old things. Like when I look back on old things, that's like, you know how a YouTuber looks back at their old like first off videos and they're kind of cringe at it. Me,
of course.
I'm gonna be honest. When I first wrote, when I wrote, looking back at it now, when I wrote drug parties, I thought that was totally fine. But I'm like, drug parties. Is that a party where people just go and just, you know, stick heroin in their veins, pop up on Xannies, and have the time of their life listening to Miley Cyrus's greatest hits?
Miley Cyrus basically it's already rehab because you listen to Miley Cyrus then. It's
Yeah.
basically already rehab. Okay, I got you now. And then he continues saying, therefore, I had to live with my grandmother mostly. So are you telling me that his grandfather was not around? His grandfather had died previously?
Oh, you know, his grandfather was never a factor. I mean, you could say his grandfather died. Like I said, a lot in the first season, very open-ended. Because again, I'm not the most experienced person. A lot is very open-ended, and you know. So his grandfather, it is either he wasn't important or yeah, he could have been dead. But it was mostly yes. I came out and said it, but we could say yeah, he died. He was dead. His grandfather was dead, and his grandmother was mentally deteriorating.
And I understand where you're coming from. I feel like for a reader, it's good to have something open-ended so you can kind of put yourself into the character's life. So I feel like it's good to leave some things open-ended, but without going to spoilers, are there anything in the first season that's open-ended that you're gonna tie back in later on in the series? Or can you just can't give me an answer right now because that'd be too much of a spoiler?
It's not necessarily a spoiler. It's essentially like
go ahead and say I know it's a spoiler. I know. Go ahead. We can't spoil the audience. I know.
Say some things will come back around. Some things will come back around. I'll say that. Some things will come back around.
All right then. Perfect. Now it says, unfortunately, she was on the brink of being put in the hospital as she suffered from a case of extreme confusions. Sometimes she wouldn't even know where she was or who she was. So she had the mental disease called
Alzheimer's?
And I don't want to say the name. Alzheimer's. She had Alzheimer's. This is basically what you're saying here without saying it. I know that might be kind of gruesome for some viewers, but is that what she had basically?
Yes. And one thing I was very hesitant on was when I was making Mason's backstory. I was tried my best to like be respectful with things because I didn't want to offend anyone. But then again, if you've ever seen Monster Cops, that's what I just said kind of contradictory, considering the things I had in Monster Cops pretty much gave 0 F's about what people would get offended by. I think that was the point of that. But yeah, I tried to be, you know, she did have Alzheimer's.
And going to Monster Cops right quick, you just brought in Monster Cops. Our viewers might not know what Monster Cops is, but Monster Cops is essentially another series created by HoodQuest as well as myself, NocturnalNoctis, which is a side piece. It's its own separate entity, but it's even more darker than the Squealer.
Oh yeah.
So as we go through the Squealer episodes, you get to see the Squealer episodes, but you also want to check out Monster Cops on Webtoon, and we'll do a Webtoon series. We might go into detail on Monster Cops later on, right?
And yes, and since I recently got my drawing pad recently fixed from stupidity, yes, Monster Cops will now get back on. We'll start back. We'll start back now. It'll coming soon. I'll start working on that probably later today, and some Angry Toast things and such. But yes, essentially.
All right, well, let's go on. Let's continue with the novel. It says, from my childhood to now, I have been on and off of antidepressant pills. So what you're saying is he constantly took medicine during his childhood. So basically, he was always taking medicine.
Yes, always. Yes, yes. And yes, all this backstory does essentially tie into later when we find out why the Squealer wants him so badly. So yes, this backstory does essentially play a vital role, because when he finds out what the Squealer is and why the Squealer is targeting him, this will come into effect later of why. So this is all very essential, but I tried to make it respectable to my best, though, you know, I'm not sure if I hit or miss, but from like the comments that I received, I didn't seem to miss. I got pretty positive feedback and some constructive criticism, which I really appreciated from all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that I noticed when I was reading this for the more serious reading earlier in the podcast, it says the last thing I wanted was to give my mother the satisfaction of knowing I ended up just like her. So are you telling me one of his main motivations in life was not being like his mother? That was one of his main motivations?
Yes, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This is a funny thing that I never mentioned, but that was, I mean, it was a good thing, but when I thought of that, I was actually listening to an Eminem song where he was trying to be like his mother, like the old Eminem songs.
So you telling me that you had the inspiration for that one sentence of this long series that was coming from an Eminem rap song?
Yes, an Eminem rap song. You said Eminem, the rapper.
Huh. And that's amazing to me, how you can hear that and just tie that in. That actually is quite amazing to me. But as we continue down, it says, I've realized the day that I lost my wife and my 2 children. There has not been a day that has gone by where I don't have vivid memories of that horrible day. The day I lost them will forever live on in my mind. So, basically,
I said day a lot.
That struggle, you did say day a lot in there, and it was kind of repetitive, but that's okay. It was the first episode.
Yeah, like
open to all mistakes of the first episode.
Like I mentioned, I remember that day when I did this thing on that day. And do you remember that day? I remember that day. That was a good day, that day.
That day really is a good day.
Yeah, that day.
Okay, then it says, back when I lived in the city, I had a fairly decent office job. Can you allude to what that office job was, or would that be a spoiler for later on in the series?
This is the perfect opportunity to meme right now. Geico can save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Perfect. I think our listeners will understand that reference.
No, they won't. Geico. They're not sponsoring this video, by the way. They're not sponsoring. Geico is not sponsoring. But if you want to, yo, Geico, you know, insurance, hit us up. You know, Geico.
Yeah, Geico, we need the money. We'll take any sponsorship we can get. Wonderful.
Geico, we're desperate.
But continuing on with the first episode. It says, my wife had informed me that she was going to take my son and daughter out for some back-to-school shopping. So this is during the summertime when this event happened. It was during the summertime?
Indeed. Yes, it was. During the summer. And you know how summer goes.
I do.
Crazy parties, drunk drivers, wild Friday nights.
I do have a question, and I don't know if you can allude to the answer, but it says, while out and about, an idiot truck driver was not paying attention to the road and ran right through a red light. Well, actually, never mind. I'm slow. Idiot truck driver. Most truck drivers are adults. I was trying to figure out the age of the driver. That's something that interested me, how old the driver was that killed the family.
You know, I never really made an age for him because the truck driver was never important. He was just he was never essential to anything, any factor.
I understand. I was just curious about that. I guess we leave it open-ended. Readers, listeners out there, put your own number on there if you have to. That's fine. But continuing on with the series, skipping out just a little bit, his family was inside the crushed vehicle clinging to life, but it took the police and paramedics too long to get there. Now, I have to say, did it really take them too long to get there, or was Mason feeling like they could have got there sooner?
Well,
they didn't do their job, or did they just not do their job to his liking? Which one is it?
Well, see, Mason wasn't there. He was not with them, but
Right, right.
when he heard from like witness accounts and when he arrived on the scene, it took the police and paramedics far too long. Or like essentially when you live in a busy city like that, it shouldn't take that long for police to get there. But it took them too long for the reason of, when an accident like that happens, traffic stops up and it's hard to get through it, even for police and paramedics. So pretty much they tried their best, but it was his perception that they took too long.
Right. It was his perception that
His
they took too long.
his bias.
His bias. Very interesting point. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times perspective changes a lot of things in someone's life, and that perspective can really change your outlook on a lot of things. And I'll leave it at that. It says it turns out that his daughter Megan was killed instantly, and then the other two died while waiting for the authorities. And then he says, my family dying changed me. So he lost his, see, I guess the event of losing my entire family at once was too much for me to handle. And then he said, ever since then, I don't smile, I don't laugh, I don't find genuine joy in things anymore. Now, my question to you is, if he was already feeling crappy when he was a kid, it wasn't until he got married that he started to have joy?
Yes, he finally found someone who could understand him, help him through his problems, and he was able to, get out there, get out of his shell, find a wife, have a family, and then those were the only things in his life that made him happy. And when that was taken away from him, geez, that just put a heavy rock on him.
Right. That's understandable. Losing someone of that value to your life that changed your life completely, and then you lose that person, it has to be very toiling on the individual. And then just paraphrasing the next few paragraphs, he vowed that he would do better than the police, so he moved 200 miles to a rural city. Is that correct?
Rural town.
200 miles to a rural city? To a rural town. Not a city, but a town, right? A town.
Yes.
And then he became a police detective in this town.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out, his life has been fairly odd.
Fairly odd.
He didn't get any Fairly Odd parents. His life has been very crappy, yet he got no Fairly Odd parents. I don't understand. But that's whatever. Neither here nor there. They probably were busy on vacation or something.
So he didn't live the childhood of Timmy Turner, and he didn't get Cosmo and Wanda. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he didn't get any Cosmo and Wandas.
Very interesting. Now, I have to ask you the question. You said this is a rural town. Does this town have a name, or does the name come down later in the series?
Did I ever make a name for it? I can't even remember if I ever made a name for it. It was just like a general town, but like the reason I didn't was because I knew how I wanted the direction of the Squealer to go. Was essentially that the things that matter will be brought out more. Like the town never exactly mattered, because pretty much I left it like that for the reason of leaving it like it could be any small town, showing that the Squealer could have been anywhere. So pretty much like, because the Squealer can be anywhere, and that's why I never exactly named the town, because I just wanted to leave it like it could be anywhere. It could be a non-existent town, it could be an actual town, it could be anywhere. You could live in the town that this happened in, though.
So open-ended. You want to keep it open-ended. So your main focus for this, it looks like to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, your main focus for this first episode was to get it to where the reader could put himself in the shoes of Mason. Is that what we're going for? The reader can see himself in Mason? Is that what we're going for, by leaving a lot of these things open-ended?
Yes, essentially like with most stories, or at least in my opinion, and I could be wrong because I'm not the wisest person, but what gets people, or what gets me engaged in stories, is if like I can relate to the character and put myself in the character's shoes, and that's what keeps me engaged in a story. Like if there's a story where the character is like has any relation to me, or like is like me in any way, I'm like, that character's a lot like me. I can see myself as that character. I wonder how this is gonna go for him. I'm gonna keep reading, and That's what engages people. So, and a lot of people, like, life isn't easy for anyone really. So I tried to make Mason, where he's that character. He's gone through a lot, but hopefully I hope people don't have to relate to him a lot, where they've lost family members in such ways as he has, and but be able to sympathize with him and try to connect with him in some form of way.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I always love stories who have that certain piece in them that I really love to put myself in the character's shoes and say, if I was in that scenario, what would I do? Or if that experience happened to me, what would I do? But continuing on, because we're gonna be running out of time shortly, continuing on with the series, he says it all started with a call he received late one night around 11 o'clock. And they said a woman called, she sounded frantic and shaking, she was scared, she heard footsteps outside her house. And then she heard the slight sounds of squealing at her bedroom window. And then, when they get to the house, what they saw, skipping down a little bit, they said it made them vomit. It was the woman who called. Then it says she was a corpse. She was clearly a freshly made corpse. The woman was almost unrecognizable. Her body was covered in claw marks that sank deep into flesh. So are you alluding to here, because I know you get into more details later on in the series, are you saying that Squealer has strong claws? Is that one of the main points of the Squealer, is that it has claws that can sink deep into flesh?
Oh well, I mean, essentially, well, don't want to give away too much for those who haven't read the story yet. But the Squealer is a powerful being, and season 1, season 2, and season 3, he's essentially a powerful being. I know he has seasons in the novel. So, and the whole purpose of the whole novel is for the main character, if possible, they're trying to either accomplish two things throughout the whole series. Each character, they're trying to accomplish the two main things that mostly everyone wants to know, and that is, what is a Squealer, and can it be killed? And if it can be killed, kill it.
And that's very interesting, because I want to go on to the power of the Squealer. Now, I'm not going to go into detail because that'll be extreme spoilers, but in this next paragraph it says, about 5 minutes later, paramedics arrived. And at closer examination, they discovered something even stranger. Some of the woman's body parts had been removed. The woman was missing her eyelids, 3 toenails from the left foot, calf muscles of both legs, and 13 of her teeth. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into detail because there might be spoilers for later episodes, but does these body parts have any significance to the Squealer that you can say yes or no? Do these body parts removed have any significance?
Oh yeah. That yes, and we'll find out later that body parts, that is very significant to the Squealer.
Interesting, very interesting, and I love, because I know where this goes. I love it, and I'm sure our listeners and readers, as they read this or listen to this, they're gonna love it too, because this series, in my honest opinion, it gets better with every episode, and some of the things that you're wondering about in the previous episode gets explained in the next episode, and it just ties in really well, in my opinion. So I'm really loving this series so far. And so it says, I finally looked over at Norse. His face had gone from disgust to utter terror. He looked as though he just reached some epiphany. He dropped down to his knees and vomited again. I ran over to him to make sure he was all right. What happened next has given me nightmares for the past 3 weeks. So basically, the next thing he did was he looked right up at Mason. He said 2 words and then pulled out his pistol and shot himself in the head. So basically, he just committed suicide right in front of Mason, who just saw a woman who lost all these body parts.
Right.
My question is, how does Mason have such strong mental capacity to deal with all these things? How is that even possible?
XP.
XP? It's an RPG game. XP.
XP. Mental capacity.
XP.
Man, we just went through that. He's been through it. He's witnessed his whole family get killed. I'm sure. Yes, XP. Best way to say it. XP. He has XP. Level 100 Skyrim.
Level 100 Skyrim. So what you're telling me is that his going through such a horrible childhood and life experience has prepared him to be the main person who can deal with the Squealer? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. He could be one of the people to handle this, but again, it's not over yet. Is this the last of Mason? Well, I mean, no, it's not. It's not the last of Mason. Mason will return, but that is for a later date.
I love it. I really do love it. And read our last paragraph before we sign off. It says, Norse, my fellow officer and friend, has just killed himself right in front of me. We're now investigating the woman's death and the other occurrences. I intend on learning more about the 2 words Norse said to me. Norse's final words will forever live in my mind. I don't know what to make of this whole situation, but I intend to find out. Lately, there have been more calls of people going missing and people being found completely brutalized. We need to find out what was going on, and we need to find out fast. I need to find out what Norse was talking about. Norse's final words, the Squealer. So basically, his final words were the Squealer before he shot himself. Is that correct?
Exactly. Because he had a flashback that we'll get to.
He had a flashback.
That we'll get to, I believe, in the next episode.
So if you like the series, and as time gets on, we'll make the format better. This is our first time, so we were a little nervous. We were trying to figure out the best format. So if you like what you're listening to, if you want to read it, there'll be a link in the description. If you just want to join us and listen to us describing it and reading it, you know, comedy, it's more serious side too, that's fine as well. But thank you all for watching the video.
Yeah,
we'll
thank you all.
definitely have videos more constantly. You know, we love Tapas, we love webtoon, we love all things comics and novels. I'm NocturnalNoctis,
and remember, we also do news on things. So if there's any like news around video game, Marvel, DC, comic book, anime world, we also do news about that. So if there's anything that y'all want us to go over, you can leave it in the comments. Anything that you feel that we could cover, feel free to leave it in the comments, and we can try to get to it. We can do some research on it. If there's any other stories or webtoons you want us to ever do reviews on, you can leave those in the comments as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you know, if there's any story you feel, and we don't even have to do like famous stories, like any story that's like you feel like, whether it be
absolutely. Also, HoodQuest, the thing to remember is that we're starting off as well. We're in our beginning journeys of writing novels and comic books. So if you're a beginner comic book writer or novel writer,
yeah, let's go together.
Well, not pitch us. Send us your a link to your comic book or your novel, and we'll review it, and we'll help get yours out there. You help get ours out there. We help each other. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up Tapas and webtoon. We're trying to make a name for it because we really love comics and novels, don't we?
Yeah, like we can grow together. Like, you know, we're developing. We all develop together. Like no writer, no comic book maker, they don't start out as a professional, but you know, we can work. That's how I do. So if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like. If you are hoping to see more in the future, why not hit that subscribe button with notifications on? And you know, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'm HoodQuest.
And I'm NocturnalNoctis. Thank you for everything, and we will see you next time. Thank you, and good night.
This has been Rose Studios.